Well, good morning. Welcome to Now You Know. Sorry we haven't had any new shows for a while, but there's been various issues that have arisen. And this is actually third time's the charm with you guys. We finally got you on, and for various reasons, including weather-related reasons, we weren't able to do it before, but here we are today. And this is a show on the Skow Savings Bank Charitable Foundation, and we're very fortunate to have some executives from Skow Savings Bank here with us. To my far right is Vicki Allward, who is, let me see, Executive Vice President, Chief Risk Officer.
That is correct.
How about that? And next to me, to my immediate right, is Dan Tilton, who is also an Executive Vice President. Sales and customer relations?
Yes,
is that right?
that's right, Chris.
Hey,
yeah.
I nailed that. The show is going to be
Good
easy
job.
from here on.
If you get bank titles, you're doing well. Good job.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, before we go too far, can you guys explain to me the difference? Because I know there's a myriad of vice presidents in the banks. What's the difference between an executive vice president and a senior vice president?
I think other than the title,
Yeah.
it typically inside of the banking world, you can have an assistant vice president, you can have a vice president, you can have a senior and an executive.
Okay.
And then only spot above the executive vice president level is the CEO. Vicki and I both report directly to the CEO.
CEO, okay.
You
There.
got
we
anything to add to that? Does that sound right?
No, just when the CEO is not available or on vacation, Dan and I usually make any decisions that need to be made.
Okay, so we had a little one-on-one course on that. So now I know. Now you know. I got to save that line for the end too. So, okay. So Skow Savings Bank Charitable Foundation. Okay, this started what, around 12 years or so ago. And how did it start, and why did it start? Who wants to handle that?
So our mission is to make our communities a better place to live and work. And we decided to, as a bank, put most of our profits or some of our profits into donations. We've done donations for years, but we really wanted to target donations. So we set up the foundation, and we can put a portion of our profits into the foundation, and we can put appreciated stock into the foundation. So we've done that. We have over $1 million, a couple $1 million now, and we just want to target it to workforce development.
Okay, but when the foundation was first set up, it was set up prior to the workforce development
Yes.
theme starting,
Initiative,
right?
yep.
And what was it set up originally to do, principally?
Originally, when it was created, was really to continue what we were doing at the bank
Yeah.
in a more formal way.
Yeah.
To have a true nonprofit under our umbrella where we could shift those funds. Like Vicki mentioned, the bank's been giving to our communities for 154 years,
Yeah.
but it was a structured way for us to make that more effective.
You're giving mostly to nonprofits?
Correct.
Pretty much.
Through the foundation, we give to 501c3s and nonprofits and try and help them do their good work. Through the bank, we can give to your local baseball organizations, the band, a lot of those different smaller donations. With the foundation, we were trying to make more of a strategic difference in the community, so it's a bigger donation, or it might be match money for another project. So if there's a project, nonprofit needs $25,000 worth of match money to get either a federal or state or local grant, they can come to the foundation, and hopefully we can get more money into the community to make a bigger difference on bigger projects.
And I noticed back ways along you were giving to like food cupboards and various other smaller nonprofits, and even it sounded as though even your employees had a role in determining which nonprofits that you gave to as well.
During the course of the year, the bank does various donations. We also have, we dress down on Fridays, and you do a little bit of a paycheck deferral into whatever fund that goes to. So sometimes it's animal shelters, sometimes it's food banks. The employees actually select every year which nonprofits we donate to. So they have, one year it was for a soldier relief fund. We've had a variety of different places that we've donated to. Food cupboards usually make the list at least 1/4 of every year because there is a need and we want to make sure we service that. But the employees give, and then the bank oftentimes will do a matching donation. That's under the bank.
Yeah.
The foundation does other things, but we still continue to do that through the bank.
So there is a process, excuse me, that organizations
Yes.
go through in order to be considered for funds. Can you kind of describe that, one of you?
Sure, yeah, and whether it's the charitable contribution committee inside of the bank or the foundation, there's similar processes. It's an application process. So we ask the nonprofit to give us some information about what they're looking to achieve. We ask about the budget. So we can kind of get a look at what percentage of the budget they're asking for. Most institutions, including us, don't like to cover 100% of any initiative because we want some other folks to have opportunities and some other companies invest in it. But they go through that application process. They prove to us that they're a nonprofit, and then we review all of those applications, see if it meets our mission, and then make a decision after reviewing that as a group.
And that's like a quarterly basis that they can apply.
Correct.
Right?
Yep, and we have the foundation actually has a board that is made up of a couple of bank employees and additionally is made up of some outside members in our communities that sit on that foundation board.
That's right. I think I remember you have like 7 members on it now.
Yes.
And John Witherspoon, who is the former CEO and president of the bank, is the chair of this. And I know, Vicki, you're on it as
Yes.
well.
Yep.
And
Yep. So we have our former CFO who still is on the board of KVCAP. He's on our foundation board. Insurance salesperson, another local business person, somebody in the entrepreneurship world. So we can rotate them, but we've had the same outside of the bank board members for the last several years. And they just bring a different perspective in the needs of their communities. We also are we have Kennebec County and Franklin County and Somerset County represented on that board, so it's not just everybody that works and lives in Skowhegan.
how often do you guys meet?
So we meet quarterly, at least quarterly. If there's a significant need or something comes in and we've just met, we can have an ad hoc meeting, and we've done that in the past, but we try and stick to a quarterly schedule because everybody has their calendars and their schedules to maintain, especially the outside board members, scheduling them, and it is usually a couple-hour meeting every time we get together.
Do you probably, because this has been going on, as I say, about 12 years or so, people are starting to recognize that you do this, and
Yes.
you're getting a lot of applications?
Yes, we do get a lot of applications. Like Dan mentioned, we do have to kind of say, what is our mission? Is it financial literacy? Is it economic development? We have a new kind of focus for workforce development because we've heard the businesses in our communities really need the skilled workforce. So we've sort of kind of migrated a little bit in that direction the last couple of years. But we do get other donations for healthcare related industries, and some of those we have to say no to because we can't do all things for all people. But we are trying to make sure that we improve the economic viability of our regions, and skilled workforce is obviously very important right now.
Now, it can't be for-profit or religious or political
Correct.
or any
Correct.
of those things, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And our foundation actually had to establish what our mission was when we formed. And so it has to be a 501c3, and it cannot be, like you said, for religious or political purposes.
And they got to provide proof that they're a 501c3.
Yeah, and that's usually just providing us their formation of their 501c3. Most companies they'll actually provide that when they send the application right in.
Okay. Workforce development. That's really what you're here for, and
Right.
and that's what's happened over the past year. And you folks have thrown some significant money into the pot for this thing. You threw in $1 million,
Yep.
and you've already allocated some of that out in pretty big ways.
We
So, if you want to describe some of those projects that are going on.
Sure. I mean, there's numerous projects. I think the one of the largest and most recent ones, we committed $250,000 to the Learning Center in Skowhegan, the new school that they're building over there, which was a really, really big project for us. In addition, we do some smaller projects that we've committed to. One of the exciting ones that I really liked was mechanized logging. There was a huge need there to train these loggers, and we made about a $45,000 donation over a couple of years to provide housing for folks that were on site in the woods learning this process. We get a chance to go up there and see them graduate, come out of the woods and run these massive pieces of equipment. That's just a couple. Vicky's got a couple others she can share, I'm sure.
Yeah. And I really liked that one because what we found was there was interest in the program. There were young people or other people that were interested in going and learning how to run these pieces of equipment. The problem with it was they didn't have the funds for housing and for lodging, and the training was free. We had other organizations provide these massive pieces of equipment for training, but they couldn't get enough students there because the students needed housing, and our funds were able to get them housing and a little bit of money for the weeks that they were in the training program. So it allowed them to attend training where maybe they might not have been able to.
Well, did I read somewhere there was like $1,000 stipend for each student for those things, housing and so forth?
Yes.
So you're kind of filling in the gap so they could afford to be there essentially because the tuition was free. Was it Alphon or the Alphon that provided that? It was
One of the
I read.
heavy equipment operators provide a lot of the equipment and provide the training programs. I can't remember the other contributor.
There's a professional logging
Loggers is-
organization that's behind that.
Correct.
too,
Yep, they were the
right?
ones that were driving it. Yep, the Professional Loggers Association / Contractors Group.
Yeah.
They had actually reached out to us to assist.
So, yeah, I mean, you saw, I think that the big issue around here is having trained people to do
Correct.
stuff, okay? And there's a fair amount of training that is necessary in order to use these new, somewhat complicated pieces of equipment in the logging industry. And the logging industry is a huge industry in the
Yeah.
Right.
state of Maine, so they needed to keep up with the times.
Right. And as Vicki mentioned, that one, it was free training, but a lot of these students couldn't afford to stay there or be there. And so we were able to fill that gap. But when we went up there and visited for their graduation, they had multi-million dollar pieces of equipment that they weren't all kids, but a lot of them were younger. They got a chance to operate something that cost $1 million, and to watch them
pretty cool.
sit inside of those cabs and navigate that equipment was an amazing thing to see.
Yeah, and it's the Northern Maine Community College that does these courses, right? Or
There's various entities that support programs around the country, but I believe you're right in that case, Chris.
yeah, yeah, and I think as I recall, it's like a 12-week intensive course.
That one,
or
I think
something.
it was 10 or 12 weeks.
Yeah.
And they lived right there in the woods the whole time. I mean,
Yeah.
that's where they were. And they didn't go home, and they spent a bunch of time, it was a couple hour drive north of here, and they got to spend their time out in the woods. And so many of them come out and have jobs as soon as they walk away because there's a pretty high demand for that type of
yeah.
position.
Yeah,
And we talked about skilled workforce, but part of it is providing the opportunities and letting people know that the training is available.
yeah,
Giving them the opportunity to go there. Dan mentioned another project which was sort of near and dear to my heart, which was the Welding Center up in Madison. That again it's a need for a skill, and we think of, oh, it's welders. Well, no, we have other business people, even like auto dealership owners that say, no, we need welders, we need that skill. Even in some of our non-welding positions, they need to have that skill. What we found out was the tech center in Skowhegan had a program, but they had so many students that were interested in the program and not enough slots in the welding center that they had.
Oh, okay.
So Chimbro has been a great supporter of that program for years. They have certain numbers of slots that they support every single year. What they were doing was turning kids away every year. So that technical center supports Bingham, Madison, Skowhegan, Carabec. So it's multiple schools in our area that go to that center, and they had up to 18 to 20 kids that wanted to do it every year, and they were basically saying, we don't have enough spots for you. So thankfully, the person that runs the tech center sent out a message, anybody have any space? We just don't have the space. And Madison was able to say, well, we have some space. It would just need to be a capital project to get it up and running. That one was a huge working with various vendors. So we had your local electricians, your local fuel companies that were helping, but you had Chimbro that was able to supply the equipment, and you got donations from local businesses. But we were able to provide a significant donation to make that happen, which was a really good thing. We went up to the open house for that. They have the welding booths are state-of-the-art welding booths. They had to have their electricity. They had to have different windows because of the codes. So it became a more expensive project, but because of our foundation's money and the community as a whole, and the leaders of that project trying to get some volunteer and in-kind services, you make the project happen. And now they have additional kids that can do welding every single year. And those kids, when we were talking at the one of the students that participated said, they have job offers from a Chimbro or from other places because of the certifications they can get by the time they graduate high school. So it gives them that certification, and it gives them the ability to go on to additional training to get more certified.
So you put, what, 50,000 or something like
Right.
that into that?
Yes.
And so the key thing here is, I mean, it's just a matter of the jobs are there if the skills are there to match it. And so you guys are kind of matching up and giving these people skills, whether it be in the mechanized logging or the welding, so that they can go on and find jobs, and what, a very high percentage of them end up getting jobs.
Yes.
Correct.
So that's the key, is just we need more trained people, and I think that's kind of what you've seen in the workforce development project.
And I think any business that you talk to, and of course we're in the banking world, so we look at business opportunities every day. And the biggest struggle that just about any business in our area, especially in our communities, has is finding employees, and it's specifically in these fields that require training. They're just so hard to come by. So for us, that's just a huge need that we see in the areas where we have branches, which is where we like to focus, which is why that's the big initiative we have through our foundation right now.
Well, tell me a little bit more about the Early Learning Center. That's such a big project in the Skowhegan area, and so they're building a big school.
Yep.
That's going to be open, I think, sometime in the fall of 2025, and this Early Learning Center has been added on to what is the new Margaret J. Smith
Correct.
School. And so tell me a little bit about what this does.
So the part of the workforce development arm of this is it provides essentially daycare services, but it's getting that child in the same spot for virtually, the first 18 years of their life. It's building that community spirit. But for us, part of the reason for our donation is it is the ability, you think about workers, well, they need childcare. We have a huge childcare issue. It's skilled workforce, but it's also where can I bring my child if I'm going to go to work. So we have a lot of families that either the parents, grandparents don't have a place to put the child. So this is going to provide an additional number of childcare seats for people, but it also gives them childcare from 0 to 3, it gives them preschool, and then it gives them school, and you're in the same sort of community. So you have that community feel for that big, it's a location, but the kids feel comfortable going there. But it also, for workforce development, gives families an opportunity to have childcare that's affordable, and they can go to work and they know where their child's going to be in a safe environment.
So there's really two major pieces to this, right? One you're trying to get the young children in the very most formative years out on the right track and hopefully become a valued member of the workforce somewhere down the road. And then you're giving the parents the opportunity to get the child care so they can go out and work and be valuable work people in the community as well. So it's kind of a neat approach. Now this is Educare
Correct.
is behind this,
Yep.
right? Educare. They did this project down in Waterville, ongoing.
Very
they've been
successful program
Very
in
successful.
Waterville.
So
Yep.
they're kind of bringing that up here, and combined with
KB Cap.
Cap, running the school, right? And if I'm, it's for kids from like pre-K to what, 5th grade, I think, are involved in this, or something along those lines.
Well, yeah, and they have, I mean, realistically, you have 0 to 5, but you have levels where you basically are more of the daycare facility than the preschool facility, and then you've got the kindergarten and on. But KB Cap is going to be running, running the program, but it is an add-on to the school project that was going to be built, but it is more of the whole community environment and getting those kids, like you said, getting them that first step, that maybe step up that they're not getting right now at 2, 3, 4 years old. And that provides a huge learning so that when they get to kindergarten, they're very well prepared. They're also very comfortable in that environment, and it provides the child care need that we have in our area.
Yeah, and they've raised, well, I got old information on that, but it was like at 1.6 million at one time. It's probably a ways beyond that, I think.
Yeah, it's over 3 now.
I believe, so their
No, I was
goal,
looking at something a year and a half ago, but
their goal for the Educare portion of this project was $3 million. And when I talked to the major fundraiser last week, he said that they have achieved their $3 million goal.
no kidding.
So they've got the $3 million. Doesn't mean they aren't probably accepting more contributions, but they've met their goal. So their commitment to that project has been met.
Wow. Now we need to get the news media out there to get this information out, because when I was preparing for this, looking up stories, I mean, the last number that I had on this, I think, was from the fall of 2022, and that was the 1.6 million. And I know the Height family
Yep.
and Alfond organization contributed, $500,000 each, and you guys pitched in with 250,000, and there were various
Yes.
down below that. So they've met their goal.
Yes.
They
Yeah,
have.
and I would not be surprised to see that press release coming out soon.
should.
So given who's running it, as you know.
Well, that's why we're here,
I'm
Chris.
thinking-
Yeah,
That's why we're here.
That's right.
We're telling
getting-
the story.
We're
Yeah.
breaking things today. This
Yeah.
is
Right.
breaking news.
Yeah.
Right.
That's-
And the exciting thing about that, obviously, the school gets funded, the rest of the school gets significantly funded by the state, right?
Yeah.
But this was mostly outside fundraising through KB Cap and the Educare program, reaching out to donors, and you mentioned some of them already. And it was just a community coming together that really bought into this project. So
Yeah.
it's super exciting to hear they've hit that number.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, they have done a great job, and I know Sam Height's been
Yeah.
head of this committee. They've done a fantastic job in fundraising for this, and was able to get money out of a lot of different entities and people in order to make this thing happen.
Yeah.
And so let's see where it goes, but it is a pretty exciting thing for the community.
Yeah.
A lot of exciting things actually going on in the Skowhegan area
Yep.
right now. So let's hope.
There is. There's a lot. We're super excited in Skowhegan right now.
Well, I mean, when you get talking about what New Balance is doing and Sappy, and let's hope about the project on the island.
The
here.
river.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
let's hope that can succeed. Who would have imagined that
Yeah.
flood? Anyways, that doesn't
Right.
have anything to do with our show.
No,
here
that's
today,
right.
But okay, so some of the other things that you can, I think we talk about mechanized logging and
Yeah.
welding and Educare and early childhood. You also are involved in the Dirigo Lab.
Correct. Yeah, that's been a fun
pitch.
project. Yep.
Yeah, so explain that one.
Yeah, we've done that for a couple years now. We've got $50,000 that we've committed to that program over the last couple of years, and in Dirigo Labs, in partnership with the economic development team over there, put on this pitch competition.
Yeah.
And it's been an exciting thing for us. We commit $25,000 that goes to the winner of the pitch competition. And this year they just announced their next program, and they have 13 cohorts now. Companies coming in and pitching their business, and ultimately they have judges. They go through courses, so they learn about marketing and business development and financial planning. They put together a budget, and so they have a great program over there to teach people how to run a business or better run a business. And they get up and have to stand in front of a group of people and make a pitch in a very tight, defined, few minutes. The buzzer goes off if they don't get it right.
Wow.
And it's fun to watch. And we've had employees that have been judges, and the winner walks away with a $25,000 check to put into their business.
Now, I read a little bit about the company this year. Is it Croft who won? And they build carbon negative buildings.
Correct.
That are obviously very tightly constructed, and yet that breathe and all this stuff. So it sounded pretty interesting.
It is.
And they had lots of 12 competitors, I think, and so forth. But it requires a lot to be part of this, because it's over like 12 weeks or something like that, and then you got to organize it. You've got to get various entrepreneurs and teachers, people to come in from various workplaces and so forth to help teach these folks too, and do that. But it's pretty exciting. Now Croft was going to use the money for like an apprentice program. Did I read that? So
that was their plan when they received the funds. Yep.
When they can get people learning to do these carbon negative buildings.
Which is awesome, because when we talk about workforce development, they're using those funds to fund a position to get somebody into the business, which is where the needs are.
So it has kind of a multiplier effect as to what you're doing. So that's pretty interesting.
Yep.
Now in Skowhegan, you're doing something very similar to that. Too,
Yep.
Through Main Street.
Main Street.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, so the bank has actually run entrepreneur programs on and off for the last 15 years.
Yeah.
So we've worked with Main Street for probably, I would say, at least 10 of those 15 years. So Main Street now runs it. They have an economic development director that runs the program, and like you said, it's similar. They meet and do various marketing, financial planning. They do a cash flow statement. What is the bank going to want to see? And what is the business plan? Who are our competitors? So it really starts with, sometimes it's people who have a brand new business idea, and sometimes it's people who have started a business, but they really don't know how to get to the next steps. So they too have they've had pitch competitions, but essentially they do these educational sessions. They hope to learn more how to plan, how to budget, how to market, how to use social media. So they have this whole program. They still do the pitch. They have judges, just like Dan mentioned, and the bank usually has one spot on the judges table. But there's a benefit of, yes, there's a check at the end of the day. But in the early years when we did it, sometimes it's talking to people about the licenses that are needed. So we have people that have come to the first sessions thinking they're going to run a cafe, but they really didn't know what the permits were needed, the requirements by the state, the licenses, all of those things, or the location that they were looking for needed an upgrade on the electrical because it didn't support what was needed. So sometimes it's a learning opportunity for them to realize, the location may not work out. Other times it's, oh good, I've got exactly what I need and I can proceed. So those are great programs. They're really educational. There's a financial component in there. And I think people learn whether or not they're actually ready to start their own business.
Yeah.
And sometimes to learn that you're not quite there yet is a blessing because you haven't put in all of your money at the beginning. But the goal is that these businesses, either they start their business or they expand their business. I know one of the last winners, we had he did the docks and the maintenance and upkeep for camp owners.
Casey?
Casey, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So he was able to get there, but part of it
Casey
was
Morgan.
Yeah, it was also, even being part of the program. Main Street did a great job doing social media. They talked about every company that was participating, so they got free marketing. Free legal services sometimes is provided or offered after the end. So there are all kinds of resources that are given to, even if you don't win the financial pot at the end. We're hopeful that people learn about developing a business, expanding their business, starting their business, and getting some side benefits of social media and marketing out of it that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
Yeah, Vicki and I have both had people reach out to us after that last pitch competition in Skowhegan and ask where his business was located, because they wanted to call him and ask about getting their own docks out,
Yeah.
which is some of that exposure she's talking about.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, of course, a lot of them, everybody has, like opening a restaurant. It's kind of an idealistic thing, and of course, the failure rate is unbelievable in that industry. So if you can at least give them realistic expectations going in, I mean, the financing thing, can be interesting sometimes, and it's just, and the permitting.
Yeah.
A lot of these folks are babes in the woods when it comes to this stuff, and they just don't know. So to have an organized way to go through. So even if they don't win, at least they've gained a lot of knowledge, and maybe they still will.
Right. And to have somebody
start the
challenge
business.
you along the way with projections, for instance, or walking you through a business plan, like
Some of them have never done that before,
Some
I'm
people
sure.
have not done that, and to have some experienced people talk to you about that, it just, even to your point, even if they don't win, they're so much better prepared if they're going to continue with their new business idea or their expansion, that those programs, both Dirigo and here in Skowhegan, make them better entrepreneurs or business owners.
Well,
And the one in Skowhegan, I appreciate the fact that they actually expanded that. So one of the winners was from Cornville. One of the winners was from Norwich Walk. The last one was trying to revamp and revitalize just the municipal building and it's not the Opera House. Yeah, it could be the
Opera
House.
House, yeah.
To get more productions there, and how can they light up productions, I think might have been the name. But to get more productions there, to get more activity, to utilize an existing space that is there, we might have to put some more money into it. They're looking at, how can they upgrade a few things in order to get more events to be held there. The more people, the more events you have, the more economic viability our little towns have. And it does impact a greater area. There were some Madison participants, some Norwich Walk participants. So I do think those educational sessions are really good. And like I said, I think it provides opportunities. It was interesting to see the business owners work with each other too, because they're all thinking about doing something different.
Networking.
But yet it's networking, and they created, you could see some bonds being created where they're going to help each other, hopefully help their businesses succeed. And whether it's a wedding venue or a horse barn or anything, there was a lot of very different. One of the ones that I liked was the drone service. Doing videos with the drones that are it's predominantly happening in other areas. It's a really good business. You saw the videos, unfortunately, of the flood where people put out, and those were a lot of the best videos were the drone videos from them.
Yes.
But to have that company and to create videos, whether it's weddings or other events, that's a real good business model right now, and it's using technology and getting people out there. Might not have a ton of employees, but it's a good business model.
Yeah. Well, it seems to be pretty valuable, and you've got some, I think, good businesses starting out because of that. And how often do they have this? Is this more than once a year that they do the
Pitch
thing, or-
competition?
Yeah.
Most of them typically do it a year. Skowhegan's tried to do 2 in a year in the past, but for most of the ones that we support, it's an annual event.
Yeah, and they are going to, I think, when I've talked to the individuals recently, they are going to try and scale it back. To have that 12-week program twice is a lot, plus you might not have enough people prepare for it, so actually the number of participants go down if you have only if you have 2 a year versus having 1 a year and
Oh,
have a
okay.
dedicated resource. So
Maybe one good one a year.
yeah,
then.
I think that's what they're going to do, and then they're looking at the timing. You know, people are busy June, July, and August, so maybe
Right.
the 12-week time frame doesn't happen during that slot. So what is the best time for people, and what are the sessions? They've also talked about expanding, having those same business opportunities and those education sessions outside of a pitch competition. So people may just want to learn about how do I form an 1120S, or how do I
Yeah.
set up my business? What is the accounting? How do I set up a QuickBooks, for example? So Main Street has done some of those types of one-offs, and they're talking about maybe doing a weekend session and promoting that. And the bank has supported some of those initiatives in the past, whether it's QuickBooks or financial budgeting or something like that.
Well, this has been going on for, what, 2, 3 years maybe or so, maybe longer. Have
Little
you
bit longer,
have
yeah.
you seen, outside of the folks that actually win the money in the pitch competition, have you seen some success from some of the other folks that have contributed or have been involved in this? Are some of these other business ideas actually getting off the ground?
Well, I've seen them a couple of pitch contests ago in Skowhegan. 3 or 4 of those businesses were already planned. They were already in a smaller scale running, but they were just opening, either expanding their business, creating more opportunities. Like the wedding venue, for example, there was a wedding venue, and because of that, they got a lot of social media. People were actually contacting them about the wedding venue, but it also provided grant opportunities for a couple of these people outside of somebody saw that their pitch, and they said, geez, I'd like to support that. That's
Okay.
something I would like to support. So they actually might have gotten outside help outside of the pitch competition, but it was because of the pitch competition that people even knew that business was either starting or trying to expand.
Well, hopefully they'll get to the point that someday they could come to Skowhegan Savings Bank or any bank and say, I want a loan, here's my plan, and I've got a certain amount to put down, and I want to finance the rest with you. Hopefully you get some of those folks getting to that level.
Yeah, we love it when that happens, and we often, when we have employees from the bank that do participate, whether it's a judge or teaching one of the sessions, it's usually one of our commercial lenders who knows that process. He or she are very familiar with the things that they would need to be prepared for, and they share that with the cohorts. So they learn even about that process and talk about timing, when it's the right time to reach out to a bank. So that's an important part of it, Chris.
Well, it must be rewarding, or will be rewarding to you when people walk in the door and say, "Oh yeah, I remember you from the pitch competition, and here's my business plan, and here's what I want to do, and I want to get some financing," and they can get it.
Yep.
Yep. And we have talked to a couple people about financing afterwards, and we have had somebody finance. But the other part of that is they also find out about what is the Finance Authority of Maine, what is the Small Business Administration. There are loan programs. If they're not quite ready for bank financing, there's some bridge financing. So they get all of that information as well. And we don't want to overwhelm them, but we do want to let them know there are other pockets. We have local organizations, so like in the towns, some of your business alliances have monies for certain programs for new businesses. Somerset County actually has Somerset Economic Development Corporation. They have loan programs for certain things. So because we're at the bank, because we're participants in some of those other boards, we also know about some other opportunities for financing, for grant opportunities, whether it's small town grants or whatever. If we hear about that and we hear that, oh, this is targeted towards this industry, we might think, oh, we just had a pitch person that would qualify for this. We need to send them that material.
Yeah.
So there are some hopefully longer term benefits of participating.
Yeah, well, Somerset Economic Development in some cases can help, and I know Skowhegan Economic Development also has
Another one.
some funds and have had that for a long time. And I used to be on that board, and God, sometimes we were looking for people to do it. And we had money to give, and not enough people to give to.
It has changed. You talk about the energy in Skowhegan, the energy in the communities. I think of even, little business in Cornville, little business in Madison. I do think people are communicating better. I think the information about those programs is getting out better. I participate on a couple of those committees, as you might imagine. And we're out of money in one of the programs that I work in, and we had no applicants 3 years ago for 2 and 3 years, and we had this money sitting there. I believe the money that's sitting in those programs are now being put to good use. People are understanding that that money is available and what it is available for, and how, if we spend the money on these things, how that's going to better the community going forward.
Excuse
Sorry,
me.
I was going to say the networking word that you mentioned earlier, that this brings people together and they hear about all these opportunities, and the people in the communities that are participating, or in our case, the bank, you learn about the businesses. So the little flag goes up in your head when you hear about an opportunity or grant money over here, and you think, oh, I remember that cohort that would be, potentially qualify for this. So you can help them connect the dots, and it's very rewarding when that happens. Even for the banks, from the bank's perspective, when a brand new business is starting and they're going through this process, opening up a bank account. Simple things that we might have done on the personal side they haven't done on the commercial side or the business side, and we see them come into our bank and open up their first commercial business account.
Yeah, absolutely. But there seems to be a lot more enthusiasm in the community. People are more excited about things, and the whole shop local thing, I think, is a big thing right now, and there have been key contributors to this. Certainly Main Street Skowhegan has been very involved, I think, in kind of creating this attitude that, and it's involved. You brought in a number of younger folks who are very enthusiastic and want to live in the Skowhegan area and be here for their life.
There's a lot of energy there.
Yeah.
And that's the key. I grew up in Madison. My husband grew up in Madison. We raised our family in Cornville. But have great connections to everything Somerset County, and this is where we want to be, and this is where we want to live. Well, if we want to be here and live here and work here, then we need to make sure that our communities are thriving. And I'm glad to see some people, it took them leaving and then coming back.
Yes.
And if they come back and they're energized about being here, they're joining the committees, they're volunteering for the activities. There's some fun activities. That ski jor, that's, something that's totally different. But they had the moose drawing at the fairgrounds a few years ago, which brought a lot of people. We have the Brew Fest, which, we sponsor, which is, again, it's more of an activity and an event, but it's energy. And, having those things and bringing people here and thinking, oh, well, I might want to stay here. That's why childcare is important. That's why housing is important. We have to make sure that we have all those things to keep people here and to raise their families here and go to school here. And so, And
you mentioned Main Street Skowhegan. They're a big part of why there's so much activity going on, and the excitement and the energy in our communities. And they're an entity that we have supported for years and years, and we do it every year, and we see the progress, and we see the things that they're doing to really spark that interest and excitement in our community.
Well, there's a lot of young talent in the community, and I'm glad to see some of it flourishing right now. And once again, a lot of it's attitude and enthusiasm, and seeing that there's hope. And for a while, I was beginning to think, well, I don't know, but in the last 5-10 years, it seems to be coming back quite a bit, I think. So, what's going to happen in the future with the foundation or the workforce development? We described some of the things you've done, but what are some of the things you're perhaps thinking of doing?
Well, we want to fulfill the commitment of $1 million. So we have applications pending that we wouldn't talk about today. But we have plenty of things on our runway over the next 6 months or so. And we continue to get applications certainly every month, if not every week. And so that we'll be focused on workforce development and looking for those opportunities that kind of mirror some of the things we've just discussed.
And that's the theme going forward for a while, I guess.
Yes.
It's a huge need, not only in our communities, but in the state of Maine. So I don't think you'll see that change anytime soon.
And
Yeah.
the foundation is here for ever, we hope. And,
We hope,
and
yes.
I'm sure there'll be a new theme that comes up at some point.
Yeah.
Well, it's all about our communities, and it's really a need-based thing, and that is the hot topic right now. And we continue, I know you know this, Chris, but we're in various communities. We have 12 branches, including as far as Portland now, so Cumberland County. We're in Kennebec County, we're in Somerset County, we're in Franklin County, and we even have the Dexter branch, which ties in a little bit of Penobscot County. And
Yeah.
we try to share the donations across all of those areas.
Yeah, yeah. And you're in Portland now,
Yeah.
We are.
in the
Yeah.
big city.
We
Yeah.
are in the big city.
And
Yeah.
one of the things that we continue to do as a bank, one of my favorite parts of the year, we do Season of Giving. So from Thanksgiving to Christmas every day, and our employees get to pick, which is part of the reason I love it, our departments get to pick a nonprofit of their choice. And we give $1,000 to all of so for every day, for like 30 days, we give money for those organizations, and our employees get to choose who is the recipient. So we had food cupboards, we had little ski mountains that need some assistance that are all nonprofit based and volunteer things. So it's interesting to see which organizations the employees wanted us to support. So that was great. So we did that. But back to the foundation, I think you're going to find a lot more attention given to the career and technical centers. They have expanded all of their services. So you have EMT training, you have CDL training, you have the welding programs, you have what historically has been there, which is the nurses and the educators. But as they look to expand, if they need more help training, we've talked to the career and technical centers in both Somerset County and in Franklin County to say, are there training programs that we could assist with? So it's not just asking for the request, but we're actually trying to actively
You're out there
search
identifying
Yeah.
things.
search them out and say, if you find a training program that is lacking funding, this is where we could help. We want to make sure that we have the skilled labor, the nurses, the EMTs are very critically important to get the truck drivers, whether or not, it's a large long-haul truck driver or day truck drivers. I mean, getting that CDL is critical.
Well, I was just thinking, about the nursing shortage in the state, and of course, Vicki is on the Reddington Fairview board with me, and we're always talking about nursing shortage.
Yes.
Is there anything that Savings Bank could participate in that? I know the technical centers are
Yeah.
involved in that.
So I think that one's a hard one because what we found is, once again, but this is at the college level, your Husson, your UMO, USM, all of the even state schools, they have great nursing programs. They have more applicants for the nursing program than they have nursing instructors to instruct. So I think the state is looking at that. I mean, I know the government has been looking at that and trying to expand services. We talked about it at the hospital meeting.
Yeah.
But that is something that might be a little bit outside. Certainly if there was some type of training for CNA training that some nonprofit was putting on, that would qualify. We would be very interested in doing some of that workforce development training. But I do think there's a need at the college level because those are certifications that are needed with a CNA program or an RN program, and hopefully we can expand the number of students that can be accepted to those programs so that we can get those nurses graduated. I do know the local hospital here does their CNA program where they're essentially training from start to finish, and you get certified as a CNA, and they're hoping to hire you right after you get
Right out of high
trained.
school,
Oh, yeah.
right?
That's the
So
goal.
I think there are some opportunities for improvement in that area, but yeah, we have electricians we need. We have, obviously the funding of the tuition for some of our local, your KV Tech centers or whatever, the 2-year degrees for electrical, HVAC. I mean, if you've tried to find an electrician that can come to your house right away.
I'm working on that right now myself.
Yeah.
Let us know how that
So-
goes.
Yeah,
We're
really.
looking for
Yeah.
somebody. So
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just those are the skills, and 25 years ago, 30 years ago maybe, when I was in high school, it was all about college prep and going to college, and that's not the focus anymore. It's you need the degree, so you go to college. But if you want to be an electrician, you need a certification. Where can you go to get that certification? But it's same with the mechanized logging. Maybe you need to learn how to run a forklift, a bulldozer, or some of these huge pieces of equipment. Well, that's a skill. And we just need to make sure that students or whoever is looking for that training know where the opportunities are. So I think communication and getting the word out there is huge.
and identifying the gaps that they have to get there, and I think is where we can step in and hopefully help them get to that place where they can then be prepared to go out in the workforce.
One other thing, and I don't know if this has much to do with the foundation really, but is housing. And of course, you're well aware of New Balance's project, and
Yep.
and they intend to be open sometime later with the new addition, sometime later in 2025. And they need to hire 200 more workers. And so I guess the question is, where are they getting them, and then where are they going to live? And if anyone's addressed that, I haven't heard it yet. Do you guys have anything to do with that housing projects, and have you got any involvement there?
We have participated in some housing projects, and certainly taken a look at quite a few of them.
Yeah, yeah.
But you're right, Chris. I mean, it is a huge need. 200 jobs in this area is a big number. But we have participated in some developments, including one in Skow, and we're looking at a couple other ones right now. But it's always on our mind.
Yeah.
And I think right now, because again, workforce, housing, childcare, there are state opportunities that are out there right now. They had childcare grants that were issued, and some local childcare centers got some of that grant money, but they had to pair that grant money with either personal investment or bank investment.
Yeah.
So there are some innovative, sometimes you have to work with 3 different agencies to come up with the plan that works. For example, we had one loan where essentially they needed the difference in funding. So they got a grant, they had a local SEDC loan,
Okay. Yeah.
and then the bank had a loan. So it was 3 organizations that participated to get this done, but it was 60 additional child care slots that were going to be made available. Their struggle is, how do we find the people to work for us to get those child care slots available? So now they'll have the center, they'll have the space, they just need the employees to fill that gap. So, but there are some state programs for child care. For housing, there's also Maine State Housing is heavily working with a lot of developers on development projects. So they're providing what would be a not really economical, feasible, profitable development project for whether it's rental units or housing units. If they provide a grant, then that makes that builder able to at least do that and not take a loss on that. So they may not be making loads of money, but they could actually put up the housing, put new housing stock in there. And what I've heard is that they'll be putting maybe some grant opportunities out there for rehabbing some older housing stock. So we have some older housing stock. If you drive around all of our communities, we have some houses that are vacant. Can we do something with those to either bulldoze them and rebuild, or to enhance the electrical, get them up to code,
Right.
so that they can be a usable housing?
Yeah.
So we don't have a lot outside of making sure that if there's some bridge financing, if there's some needs there, we do that. A lot of us on, whether it's our executive team, our senior management team, or our employees, we're also the volunteers on a lot of these organizations. So even if it's not the bank doing it, I might be putting my different hat on and doing it through SEDC or Skow and TIF committee.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And as you said, I mean, you know, your awareness of what these other groups can do, they may be able to provide some additional funding beyond what they could get with Scout Savings.
Yeah. Connecting those dots is important and a big part of what we're able to do. And again, back to that networking thing. And if you know the other parties in the community, which Vicki mentioned, she's on a couple of those boards, and to be able to share that with people that might not know it is very rewarding and a great opportunity.
Fantastic. Well, believe it or not, you know, we pretty much covered the hour.
All right.
How about that? I was checking my watch periodically. We don't have this big clock behind me that tells me how much time we got, but that's okay. John is okay as long as we finish somewhere within the 15 minutes of something, right? So, anyways, this has been very interesting programming this morning, and I'd like to thank Vicki Allwood and Dan Tilton from Skowhegan Savings Bank sharing all this information
Thank you, Chris.
this morning. And I think I should acknowledge a fellow who's behind the scenes with John here this morning, Andrew Fortin Trimble, right? And he was the man who organized this and got you guys together, which is probably a difficult thing trying to herd you together and on your schedules and so forth. So thank you. Andrew, your position with the bank is?
Chief Marketing Officer.
Chief Marketing Officer. So I appreciate your doing that, Andrew. So thank you very much, and now you know.